This video is about a lot more than just the full moon in Capricorn. This video is about where we're at within the Great Shift. Now, if you have consumed a lot of media over the years around spirituality, metaphysics, consciousness expansion, things of that nature, you have undoubtedly heard about this thing called the Great Shift. So what is the Great Shift? The Great Shift is essentially a shift in consciousness. It's a shift, a reset, if you will, for humanity. But this doesn't happen overnight. This is not something where we need to get ready for it because there's just going to be one specific day in which everything is different. The Great Shift started in 2020 when Saturn and Jupiter had their great conjunction. And it has continued and will continue until 2030. Now, this entire decade is defined by intensity. And you don't have to be an astrologer, you don't have to even be all that aware to be able to see it and feel it all around us. But within that decade of intensity, we have milestones. We have times in which things may feel even more intense, and we will have episodes where there is more shift, more change that is more concentrated. And then we plateau, we then go into a time of mini integration. And I say mini integration is because we are still within the wave of intensity of the Great Shift. So it's like we get to come up for air every once in a while, and then a big shift comes, another big wave of change comes. And you may have been experiencing even this in your own personal life since 2020. So to understand why this particular full moon is such a big deal, we have to take a look at the outer planets. We have to take a look at Uranus, Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune. Because 2026 is going to be one of those big milestones. And this July, with this full moon, is like a dress rehearsal where we actually get the benefit to prepare for what's going to happen in 2026. There have been milestones and shifts where we did not get this benefit. I mean, 2020 itself, with the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, is a testament to that. There was nothing that really prepared us for how everything got rattled up that year. These outer planets move a lot more slowly than the inner planets. So for example, Pluto will change signs every 12 to 35 years. It's not even completing a complete cycle. It's just, it takes 12 to 35 years just for it to shift from one sign to a next. Saturn, for example, it takes 2.5 years to get through one of the signs. You compare that, for example, to the sun, which takes 1 month. The moon only takes usually a few days to go through one of the signs. And so these planets, they have a much larger orbit. And because they have a much larger orbit, they are dispersing a lot more gravity. They have a lot more pull, if you would like to look at it that way. And so when they move and they shift signs, we feel it on a collective level much more deeply. Neptune takes 14 years and Uranus takes 7 years. And Uranus has just shifted signs on July 7th. Now, what is it that we're getting ready for in 2026? 2026 is going to have a milestone where Neptune and Saturn are going to conjunct one another at exactly 0 degrees in Aries. 0 degrees in Aries is the very beginning of the entire zodiac. It is literally a new complete cycle, not just shifting signs, but it is starting completely anew. What's also very interesting about these two heavy hitters is that we have Saturn, which is about limitation, it's about tradition, it's about time-bound consciousness, and it is very much about what we consider to be real. Saturn doesn't like to change. Saturn values tradition, it values institutions and structure. Then you have Neptune, where it's going to conjunct in 2026. That is very much not any of that. Neptune is about liminal spaces, it's spirituality, it's etheric kind of themes such as dreams, imagination, intuition, spiritual connection, astral travel, like all of that is the realm of Neptune. Neptune is about things that are undefined. Saturn is about creating definitions. So we have these two opposite energies at exactly 0 degrees in Aries. There is no choice, but that energy is going to shift and change. On top of that, it is very uncommon for all of these outer planets to be shifting signs within the same 12 to 18 month period. That's very rare that they would all be shifting signs essentially within the same year. Pluto recently shifted signs at the end of 2024, and we have Saturn and Neptune that both shifted signs this spring, and now we have Uranus on July 7th that is just now gone from Taurus into Gemini. Now I will get to the part that the full moon plays here in a second, but we're going to talk about it a little bit later because it plays a very secondary supportive role with all of the big energy that is happening around this full moon. The real heavy hitter around this full moon is actually Uranus. When Uranus shifted on July 7th, and the full moon is on July 10th, it created a trine with Pluto and then a sextile with both Saturn and Neptune. And it also has not a perfect conjunction, but it has a conjunction with Venus at 6 degrees in Gemini on the full moon. What Uranus does is it releases pent-up energy and brings the hidden things to the light. Now, this is already a bit of a theme that has been going on for some time with Pluto shifting from Capricorn into Aquarius, which happened at the end of 2024. And Saturn and Neptune, after they have shifted their signs both into Aries, from Pisces to Aries this spring, they've been kind of dancing around each other around that 0 degree mark for a while, but they're both going to be going retrograde, so they're not going to actually meet up for that perfect conjunction until next year in 2026. Saturn and Neptune playing this dance with one another and being such very opposite energies, what we're going to be faced with for the next year, and especially with Uranus being in Gemini, we are going to be faced with the question of what is real. And we can already see the seeds of this being planted with AI and with, images that are being presented that are AI created on social media. We're already starting to see this conflict, this challenge, this upheaval of knowing what is real and what is not. The flip side of Saturn and Neptune, though, the bright side of this, whatever it is that we imagine, our ability to manifest what it is that we conceive in our imaginations will also be enhanced. But in order for us to know what is worthwhile for us to birth into being, we have to be really connected into our intuition and into our powers of discernment. Because with all of this energy around questioning what is real, with Neptune and Uranus, with Uranus being like this upheaval energy and Neptune being this etheric energy of imagination, but also illusions, we have to be very careful that we're really rooted and grounded in what it is that is truly right for us in order to be able to make good decisions for the future. The next year, if we were to take a look at the big picture, not just for our own personal lives, there will be a lot of smoke and mirrors this next year. The next 18 months, I would say. We've already seen this in the media. We already are seeing this in Hollywood and in politics. We've already started seeing these themes. Well, just lock in and keep your hands in the car because we're in for the ride, and there's no getting off because the train has left the station. Now, with all of these big energies, we have a lot of fire and air. We have Uranus that just went into Gemini, we have Saturn and we have Neptune that's in Aries, and we have Pluto that's in Aquarius. And Aquarius, even though it's the water bearer, is an air sign. This creates a very combustible energy, and this is where this full moon comes in that's really, really helpful. Because this full moon in Capricorn gives us some earth. Thank God we've got some earth going on here, because with all of this fire and air, it can feel very intense and volatile. What's also really helpful is that this full moon in Capricorn is creating a trine with Mars at 5 degrees in Virgo, which is yet another earth sign. So thank the stars that we have got some earth going on here. And the moon is our emotions. So with Saturn being our structures and our limitations, both perceived as well as real limitations, Neptune, our imagination, our intuition, Uranus, the energy of change and realization, and Pluto being the energy of transformation and rebirth, it's really reassuring that we have our moon, which is our emotions, and Mars, which is our physical vitality and our energy, our drive, and our passion, being firmly rooted and firmly grounded in reality. This trine is a very harmonious alignment between the moon and Mars. Mars. Our drive and our energy can still stay very concise. It can still stay organized, grounded, and our ability to take strategic action is enhanced despite the fact that we might have like what seems like a swirling wind, a swirling tornado, a fiery tornado going on around us. This really allows us to be in the eye of the hurricane so that we can stay calm and we can stay pragmatic despite the fact that there will probably be a lot of information around us, both personal circumstances as well as circumstances in the collective, that are going to really want to pull at our passions, pull at our energy in a way that would feel very reactive and very volatile. This allows us to still stay anchored, to be able to prioritize what's truly important. Also, with Venus conjuncting Uranus and trining Pluto, on a personal level, we may experience a lot of changes with our health, our wealth, our home, how we communicate, our relationships. So this is not just a time of upheaval for the collective. A lot of us, especially those of us who have a lot of alignments that are ruled by Venus and ruled by Gemini, a lot of us will also see in the next month a lot of shifts and changes on a very personal level as well. Now let's get back to the Great Shift real quick, because I want to talk about why this is such an important dress rehearsal and why this is, quite frankly, a blessing that we're able to have this time to be able to get a sneak peek as to what to expect in 2026. Uranus has been in Taurus for the last 7 years. Uranus being in Taurus, that's a really difficult placement, especially for those of us who have a lot of Taurus energy. Now, when a planet goes into a sign and when a planet exits a sign, that's when it is at its most intense. So this last year for you, Taurus, this has probably been a really intense year for you. On the collective level, Uranus and Taurus is a very uncomfortable place because, for one, Taurus doesn't want to move. It's fixed, it's earth sign, and it is the bull, right? It buries its hooves into the sand. It does not want to move. And then you have the lightning strike of Uranus that tries to make the immovable move. It's basically the same kind of energy as an earthquake. But the earthquake only really happens when there's stuck energy, when those plates of the earth, when those fault lines, when they rub up against each other. That's what we felt with Uranus and Taurus. Everything had to be super pressurized before the energy was finally released. Now that we have Uranus going to Gemini, Gemini is air sign, it's not Earth. Gemini is our thoughts, it's our perspective, it's our communication. So change is going to be a lot more rapid for the next several years. And especially when it comes to communication, social media, and technology. Artificial intelligence, I believe, is going to change our world so dramatically in the next 7 years that we won't even recognize the new technology. It'll be beyond our imaginations in 7 years from now. That's how big I think we will take a quantum leap in the area of technology, artificial intelligence, and communicating online and through technology. Now, what makes this a dress rehearsal? What makes this a dress rehearsal is how all of these planets, how they retrograde and then they come back. So this is just the sneak peek of what to expect with Uranus and Gemini. Because Uranus is going to back up, it's going to go retrograde, and then in November 7th, it's going to go back into Taurus for its final time, and then in April of 26, it will be back in Gemini once again. And then we have Saturn in Aries. It's going to back up and it's going to go back into Pisces on September 1st for the very last time. And then on February 13th, it will reach Aries once again, where it will finally station in Aries. Neptune is going to do something similar. Neptune is going to reverse. It's going to retrograde back into Pisces, where it will reach Pisces on October 26th. And then of January 2026, it will finally station for good in Aries for the next 14 years. So for right now, we have an alignment that's going to be very similar as to when all of these planets are going to be in these signs next year. So next year, when all of these planets finally station for the long haul in their signs that they're in right now, this is going to be the type of energy that we're going to be experiencing with Uranus and Gemini, and Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Pluto's already done its dance back and forth. It's already rewound itself back into Capricorn and back into Aquarius. It's been in Aquarius now for like 6 months or so, and this is where it's going to be staying for a while. The other thing that's really powerful about all of these outer planets and how they're moving is not just that they're all changing signs, but they're all making harmonious alignments with one another, trines and sextiles. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to be ultra easy, but it does mean the energy is going to be flowing, and it will probably be flowing rather quickly. So with all that being said, let's take a look at how do we leverage all of this big energy. How best might we use this dress rehearsal for 2026 for our greatest benefit? Well, if this isn't just quintessential Uranus and Saturn, and maybe even a little of that Venus conjunction too. Okay, so we have the Fool card, which is new beginnings, jumping into the unknown. It's full steam ahead. So that would be Uranus. It's new beginnings, it's new inspiration, and it's a little bit of a risk taking. But then we have the Eight of Cups. We have the Eight of Cups right side up, which is about just giving it one more try. And then we have the Two of Cups, which is about relationships. And that's why I was talking about, we might have a little bit of that Venus energy in there. The Eight of Cups this card is more associated with like an older kind of energy. So we've lived enough essentially to have disappointments. It's not the kind of energy of the Fool, which is much more about like youth and childlike kind of sense of wonder and a little bit of naivety, where he's so excited, but he hasn't experienced any hard knocks. This is the very first card in the deck. It's the very first card in the hero's journey. This is where the hero is so excited to go on this adventure because he doesn't know exactly what the challenges are that lies ahead. So this we have Uranus, big change, new beginnings, Geronimo. And then we have the Eight of Cups, which I look at as being more of a Saturnian kind of energy, which is I've lived enough life, I've had enough experience, and I've had a few knocks. And so now he's sitting, he's contemplating of, is it worth it? And then we have the Two of Cups, which stands for, I think that the Eight of Cups for a lot of us who are watching relates to how we relate to others. There has been, over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of energy around renegotiating relationships and how we relate to others, both on a personal level as well as more of a group or collective. And that had a lot to do with the North and South Node when that was in Libra and Aries. There was a lot of me versus we, figuring out boundaries and things of that nature. A lot of people ended their relationships during that time, both personal, romantic, and professional relationships. So here we have a reassessment. The Mars in Virgo with the Capricorn energy, Capricorn is Saturn, by the way, that is inviting us to take a seat and to maybe look before we leap. That the new beginning that is lying ahead, I think, is probably one of those things that more or less, this new beginning for us, it's going to happen to us. We're not going to happen to it. That things are going to shift, things are going to change regardless. And we're being asked what part of our relationships or which relationships are supposed to come. And so what kind of journey do we want the next 12 to 18 months to be like? What is going to be worth the risk and change in order to get to where you want to go? Because if change is absolutely necessary and is unavoidable, then we might as well take a moment to contemplate how to make it worth our while. What are the areas of our life where we do have the greatest leverage? And I think in a lot of us, it's going to be our relationships, restructuring our relationships and deciding which ones really deserve the most attention, the most energy. And I think that there's also going to be a contemplation on what kind of relationships we want to create for the future. There may also be some looking back and maybe making amends for some of us, because the Eight of Cups is about, giving it one more try, dusting yourself off and trying again. And because we have the Two of Cups with a relationship card, and this one also has the caduceus symbol in the middle there, the symbol of medicine, I think that there's going to be some of us who are going to choose to heal some of our relationships that perhaps were severed or that we had previously made a decision to let go of. But if we do that, there needs to be renegotiation. There's a reason why we got disappointed in the first place. So for those of you where that part of this reading resonates, you may find my upcoming video on forgiveness this week very helpful. I am going to be releasing in a few days on 3 steps on how to forgive when you can't forget. And if that's already been released, you'll be able to find the link down below. Also, we have the square between Jupiter and Saturn. That energy is starting to dissipate, and that is a really good thing. Things are going to start feeling a little bit like we have a little bit more elbow room, so to speak. These 2 heavy hitters have been duking it out ever since June, the middle of June, where they exacted the square on June 15th. Now that energy is starting to dissipate, and I think I'm not alone when I say I am so glad that those 2 are basically saying we agree to disagree and going their separate ways. But I am going to give you a heads up of Mercury retrograde that is coming up before this next new moon. It is coming up on July 17th. And it will stay retrograde until August 11th. It's going to go from Leo back into Cancer. This is again repeating that same kind of message that we had with the 8 of Cups around reanalyzing, reorganizing, and restructuring. Because as Mercury, which by the way rules Gemini, as it goes from Leo into Cancer, it's going to be shifting our perspective into what grounds us, what roots us, what's nurturing to us, and what supports us. And as it relates to the 2 of Cups, I think that this might also, and it's also interesting because this has the Lion on it and it's moving from Leo into Cancer. I think for some of us, we may have put ourselves out there and maybe have gotten a bit disappointed, or we didn't get the results in the timely manner that we had expected. That Jupiter-Saturn square, it created this duking out between optimism and pessimism, aka whatever it is that we quote unquote feel is realistic. It also created times in which opportunities came up and then they seemed to fizzle out. For some of us, some of those opportunities are going to revisit us, and it's going to be that kind of analogy where a door is shut but a window is open. So I think for some of us, whatever it is in our intention was around that opportunity, that your intention will manifest, but it may not manifest in the time or in the way that you had expected. And it may not manifest until the middle of August when Mercury comes out of retrograde. One of the reasons why I use astrology is because in times like these where the timelines are shifting so rapidly, I think it's important to document where we've been and to take a sneak peek using the tarot and astrology as the ability to be able to read the fractals of patterns that are moving through these timeline shifts. We can use that then to sneak peek into how energy is patterning itself into the near future. That's really the reason why I do these videos. So to summarize this, stay grounded, use that Capricorn energy to fuel your drive in a very rooted, very pragmatic way. Because Capricorn, it's the sea goat. It will go to the highest highs and the deepest depths. It's very resourceful. And then we also have that Mars and Virgo energy that is giving us the ability to strategize, to analyze, and to orient ourselves in a time in which we could very easily be disoriented with all of the fiery, airy energy that is swirling around us. Don't give in to fear, don't give in to anger. Those are the kind of energies that are going to pull at us, that are going to want to bring us into drama where we will lose perspective, where we will lose our pragmatic sensibilities that are going to help us be able to navigate this next year with much more clarity. If we can just pull our energy back and take more of a witness perspective, we are going to make good decisions that are going to ultimately lead us into a better place 12 to 18 months from now. I also have a big announcement to make. I'm going to be launching the Be the Whole You app. This is going to be the home for the Turn Your Sensitivity into Strength program. That is an empowerment program for empaths and highly sensitive folks and spiritual seekers. This will also be the home of the Be the Whole You Inner Circle, where we will meet live in a virtual setting for virtual healing sessions and quantum ceremonies. The app is free, and if you would like to be on the wait list, then join the newsletter with the link below. Thank you all for joining me here, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.